Hey there guys, welcome to again another tutorial dealing with the first assignment, assignment 1 in motion tracking, which is point tracking and stabilization inside of Adobe After Effects. So just like our last tutorial where I kind of went over stabilization, I want to continue here talking about the different variable point tracking systems that are available inside of After Effects. So again, I've just loaded up some footage here, and once again remember, you usually want to think about your length of time here. Make sure I'm starting at 0 so I can see that this is actually, it's about 8 seconds, which isn't half bad. So again, now that we're doing about tracking, like 1-point tracking, which again is just tracking something. So in this case, I'm just going to track this guy's head. 2-point tracking, where you can track 2 points, and that takes into effect now scale and rotation. And then you've got 4-point tracking, which takes into scale, position, and perspective. So just to start with the 1-point tracking here, okay, so what I need to do though is I need to come in here and I need to track something onto this guy's head. Now again, tracking is located here. See, we've got track camera, which we'll get to much later. We've got track Boris Mocha, which of course we'll get to later. Warp stabilizer is what I've already talked about, just to make the image or the video a little more stable. And track motion. So let's go with track motion. Okay, and you'll notice immediately what it does is it opens up the footage inside of the layer window. This is again the issue I said the last tutorial is if you're going to be doing stabilization or tracking, you want to do your editing ahead of time, your cropping or your trimming of your video, and then do the tracking or stabilizing in another window, because you see it's actually going to track the entire layer or the entire time, which again, if you've already cropped it, it's going to still do the whole length. Okay, and this opens up, of course, our tracker here, and by default it gives me, you see here, a tracking point, which of course I can navigate up to what I want to track. As I said before, I'm going to try and track his whole head here. Now you see what it gives us here, right? It gives us a couple, you can see position, rotation, scale. The second you activate rotation or scale though, it's going to add 2 points, because you need 2 points to track. Like if I was to track ear to ear or something like that, or this corner to that corner, then it would actually track rotation and scale. But 1 point will only track position. You see it gives me a couple different settings here. I don't know if you can really see that all that well, but this is giving me a feature size, which is, in the search area, which is the outer box. The feature size area, which is mostly what you want to try and lock in. And remember, it's going to use a luminance channel. You can see you can even come in here and edit and choose your options. Okay? See, it's going to check a luminance channel, and that's just a value of light versus dark. You'll see it also can do saturation. So let's say, for example, you're doing a film and you want to track something. You can put a bright fluorescent green dot on it or a bright red dot, and it will read that saturation. You can also track red, green, blue alone. So you basically want to have it centered on what the feature you want to track. Again, it's going to track this big black, it's basically going to read it as a big black dot here on the back of his head. You can see the motion source is, of course, the video I'm using. The current track is tracker 1. See this? Track type is transform, because we're only doing position. So if I want to analyze now and read this track, zoom out just a little here, we basically can either go 1 frame forward, and I almost recommend doing this a little bit first, is just to do a frame forward, and you can see it's trying to stay, and it's basically putting a transform position keyframe on each frame. Now, big problem people make when they go to track using After Effects, again, it's not perfect. They just go and they analyze forward, and they just play it, and it tracks. The problem is that if you have a shaky camera, or if your object you're tracking has any kind of blur, it can jump off and get loose, because it could jump onto a tree or something like that as he passes over them. So one of the things you almost want to make sure of when you're tracking here is if you're going to hit the track analyze forward here, if you do it in small bursts. But you can see it just paused, and you see it's actually giving me, let me zoom in to show you the path of that center point on our tracker over time. See how it travels with it? It's trying to stay dead center. Now again, it is not rotating with his head, and it is not scaling with his head. And you see now the path of our tracking point is going to here. And you see that point is trying to stay center and stable. Oh, there was a little bit of a jump there. You see that little bit of a jump? What's neat is I can actually take that and smooth it out a little bit. See? If there is a major oops in the tracking process. So you see, what I'm kind of doing is I'm looking for the smooth, gradual motion as it follows this guy's feature, his head. Because yes, if he were to suddenly shake his head violently, oh, see there was a big jump right there? And if you saw that, let me go back and back. Okay, because what I need to do, it jumped significantly here. I'm actually going to just move the whole feature piece. Come on. Closer to where it should be, which is right there. And then I'll go analyze, and you'll see if you analyze over keys that have already been set, tracking points that have already set, you can analyze back over top, and it will re-key and adjust as needed. Whoa, see, big bumps there. Let's go back. See, it's jumping a lot there because it's losing its feature. But you see what I can do is if I analyze back, it will actually adjust as needed. Now what I can do in here, like I said, is I can come in now and I can kind of even out where this tracking feature is going to be. Remember, we don't want big jumps. See the big jumps going on there? If need be, guys, we can actually, see, it's a feature is jumping onto that tree is what's happening here. So watch what I can do. I can go back in time to where I have that feature properly centered. See, it's jumping onto the tree there. Make this a little smaller. Put it back in the center of his head to where it should be, right about there. And let's just analyze single frames again. See? And I'm making it kind of, see, there's the jump again. It's jumping a little too much for my taste here. See, I want to get it back over onto his head. And this is where, again, if it jumps off onto a tree like that because it's inside the search area, just put it back on there, and then you just have to do some backward chugs to even out the path. Okay, just like that. You can also see I can analyze backwards here until I get it to be even. Now, in this case here, I almost recommend just trying to find a center even value. See? Just trying to center it up. It's going to move and migrate a little bit, but the eyeball, because it's going frame by frame, is really not going to notice that. Just center that up a little bit. Now let me get to where, and if you ever need to, you can open up your motion track here. See, your tracker to see how far your progress has gotten. Just go forward. And I'm just going to let it play it out a little bit here now that it got past that tree. See, I had to make it a little bit smaller to get past that tree because the search area picks that up and says, oh, I want to be on that tree right now. See, let's go ahead and pause it now before it even gets to that tree. Now you see the new path it's built. Watch it try to jump onto that tree there. Let's see. It's holding. It's holding. Excellent. So just by making that feature just a little bit smaller and recentering it, going back and going front, I was able to get it to work. Let's pause to see the new file. There we go. And I'm just going to let this play out now. Remember, it's a long clip here. Just trying to see there was a little bit of a bobble there. A little bit of a bobble there. What you want to do, especially when you get done with this, is just look for any big jumps. All right. All done. So what I can do now, don't really see any real big jumps, but remember, we can also adjust this after the fact, because you see the tracking point is just simply keying auto attach, confidence, feature center. So those all are just keys. Okay? Now, the one thing I haven't created yet, though, is a target. Now, the best way to do a target, guys, is to create just a simple null object. Okay? Because the null is just a layer that has all of our transform and position elements to it all, but nothing assigned to it yet. Okay? Eventually what I'll do is I'll bring in a graphic like a logo and simply just parent it to the null. That way, if I want to do some extra effects to that, like rotate it or something, it's the null or even the graphic. But it's just easiest to say edit target. See, it automatically knows to go to null because it's the only other layer in here. Okay? So what have I done? I've done the 1-point track for the entire video, adjusting feature and search size. I've analyzed it, right, and done the whole play through the entire thing. But it isn't actually assigned until we hit apply. So I'm going to say apply using X and Y. You can see I can do X only, Y only, but I went X and Y. Hit OK. And I don't know if you can see this, but you see now I have my null. So here's my red null with its center point here on the left corner. It doesn't really matter here. And that null has adopted all those keys. See the position keys? It's done all those keys in position all the way through, following the information from the point tracker. So let me go ahead and just turn this down to a quarter quality view. Let's make it fit. And if I hit spacebar, again, notice the null doesn't show up here, but it is tracking and following. So I'm going to come here in the center somewhere where his head is not too close to the top here. And let's put in a graphic. Okay, let's do, sure. Okay, so I've got this your logo here, this little like scooter delivery guy, right? Could have done Uber Eats or something like that. Let me go ahead and scale it. And I will position it where I want it to be. Okay, maybe I'll put it right here next to his head. Okay? And now, all I need to do, if I want that logo to follow everywhere his head goes, is simply parent link it to the null. And now, you get it, point tracking. Okay? And it now is mimicking that point track, all the subtle movements there. You see there's a few bobbles. You see the few bobbles right there? And that's, again, just needing to go through and kind of clean up that path and make sure it's a little bit smooth. See, there's these bobbles right here. Bink, bink, see? And that could be anything from him going over a small pebble or something like that. But 1-point tracking. In fact, watch this. Because this guy is even on its own layer, right? I'm free to animate and move this because it's the null that's doing all the heavy lifting. Right? Watch what I'm going to do here. So turn on 3D. Let's say, yeah, we'll do Y rotation. Key the Y rotation. Come here. Give it 5 rotations, the Y axis. I can even turn on motion blur because, again, it's not attached. And now you see I've got this little rotating logo representing So you can think about what you could do with this. You could have people walking around on the street, or people walking around on their phones, or just sitting there on their phones, and floating above their heads could be one could be on Coinbase, one could be on Twitter, one could be on Reddit. You could have this neat little advertising element there. See, there's just a few baubles in there. Okay, and there you see it in real time. So, in many ways now, it's time now, okay, this is one-point tracking. So what would you want to do to actually present this besides just exporting it and rendering it as a one-point tracker? Think about that final, the breakdown of what you did here. So you might want to actually have the original footage, or have the version of the footage where instead of having the logo here, replacing that with just a solid or a shape to represent the actual tracking over time, and then the actual image alone. So you could even do this, see, to actually show, hey, this is the image by itself tracked and doing what it's doing, rendered off. So you're showing the before and after, the progress of everything, the breakdown, if you wish. And just because this is, again, 1 point here, right, doesn't mean I just used a logo here for this, right? But what if I were to, let's replace, what am I looking for? Replace footage, watch this. So I'm just going to replace this logo, and let's do it with this fireball explosion, which again, layer, blending mode. That's weird. Why isn't my blending mode on? PNG. Actually, let me go ahead and deactivate the 3D then. Okay, that's what it is. Yep, it was the 3D. And of course, I can do a add, which makes the blacks transparent. And now I've got a little explosion animation happening above his head. See that? See if I can use a different one right here instead of the add. Let's try overlay. No. Dodge. Obviously, it would work much better if it was a dark image because it's fire, right? You don't really see fire in the daytime. But I can embed video onto there. So maybe follow the backpack. And again, get the idea of what it's doing. So that's just an explosion on a black screen that you could just find as a special effect. I could have smoke, right? I could have sparks coming off of them. I could have tracked a point on the scooter as well, right? Or I could have had 50 different advertisements attached, floating as this guy's moving along here. Each with their own points, of course, because the points of the hand travel differently than the head. Right now I'm only tracking his head. So, 1 point tracking, pretty cool. Just remember, whatever you do with it, get away with. Okay, here. Go ahead and delete these motion trackers just to get back to the original video. Because again, track motion, here we are back in here. What if I wanted to track something a little bit different here? And this is why this gives us this zoom box here, is because you can physically zoom in on it to show you the pixels. So you can see here now, let's say, you see how I've got this luminosity difference here where I've got white surrounded by black. Okay? Now watch what happens though if I start adding rotation or even scale. Now you see it's still only 2 points. But what that allows me to do now is to track 2 points over time. And as this thing moves further away or closer, or even as his body shifts, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, because remember, I can still attach 2 nulls here, and then parent another logo onto this, but it will affect the rotate. Okay? So let me go ahead here now and just assign again, do another null. So again, edit target, null, and I can evaluate it. Okay? Like I said, try doing a couple forwards so it starts to read the natural path of what it's doing. And cross your fingers here. Now, I'm not going to do it very long. I'll just do about 3 seconds because it takes a while. But you can see these 2 points are actually trying. See, there's a little bobble in there. They're each individually tracking. Looks pretty good, actually. I'm surprised. But again, he's not jumping around a lot. And I'm not competing with those trees really anymore. Yeah, see, now it's getting crazy here because it's changing the whole perspective, so it's losing that luminosity. So just that quickly, right? So let's go ahead and apply. I'm not going to clean it up necessarily here. And you see now, once again, you can see that there's my null, right? And that null is following. But it's also taking into account that other tracking point. So as I roll here, you see my null is actually scaling, it's rotating a little bit, and if I look at the null, you can see it's actually adopted position, scale, rotation keys over time. There's actually a script you can do, guys, by the way, that will automatically smooth these. So if you have one key that jumps really big, you can actually pump a script through here that will actually automatically smooth those keys out. All right, so let's bring back where am I? That's right, I replaced it. Hold on, let me import. Let me go ahead and import the graphic there of the scooter logo again. Okay, put that here. And again, now I can actually position, set this up to make it look like it's actually on the back of that bag. Now again, it's not going to do perspective. And you'll notice here that in the perspective view, it actually at one point, especially at the end, the camera kind of passes him. So it's not going to do that. So I'm actually going to come over about here and say end for end to end my comp, so I don't have to do that. Okay, so I've got the logo text here. All I need to do, again, remember now, is parent it to the null, and it should affect rotation, scale, and position. Let's see. Yes, there's a little bit of a jump there. It's almost as if scale... It's got some sections that work really well. It's almost as if the scale should not actually... is jumping a lot. See, there's little pops of scale. But it is rotating and positioning according to those 2 points. And really, all you'd ever have to do here is just find those, go down to the scale here. See that pop right there and right there? So you can see even here, 102, 104, 105, 106, 107, 103, see? And that even can be done if you zoom in on these sections, where you see where it's jumping here. I can even take out these ones that are far too high. Just get rid of them. Really, the one section that works quite well is in the middle there. So again, 2-point tracking, pretty much in a nutshell, is just finding 2 points, understanding it affects scale and rotation, and position for 2 points. All right, I'm going to stop this little video right now and wrap it up. And then the next part, of course, I'll talk about the 4-point tracking.